Welcome back to another episode of In Systems We Trust. My name is Marquis. I am your host, and today I'm super excited for this conversation. My guest today, I stumbled across when I was looking for new podcasts to listen to, and I found hers and stumbled down the social media rabbit hole and found out that this person has a lot in common with me. We do a lot of the same things. And so I was super excited to chat. I sent her an email and she responded and said, yeah, I'd love to collab. So thankfully she said yes. And we're going to be chatting today about everything systems, everything that I love, and talking about life and order and freedom. And so I hope you love the conversation that we're about to have. And so Latrice Claiborne is a founder and owner of Trinity Business Solution. She's a systems and operations strategist who has transformed hundreds of entrepreneurs' businesses from blah to all systems go. She is a tech tools fanatic who's always up to date on the latest trends and automation, tech and automation trends. Latrice scaled her own business to multi-six figures while being a stay-at-home mom to her 3 children. And she's passionate about helping other business owners achieve the same level of freedom that she experiences every day. And so today, again, we're going to be talking about how to create a business that supports your lifestyle. Welcome to the show, Latrice.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. It's good to have you here. So every guest that comes on the show will typically kind of explore their background. Everyone has a before story. So I'd love to start there. You have 3 kids. You started your business from home. So tell me about your background and what led you to the point we're at right now, or even to start Trinity.
Yeah, so I actually was already doing this to some extent out in corporate America. Systems have always been just a thing. It was a natural thing that has been in my life forever. Always. Right. Everything needs a structure. Everything needs a process. Everything needs a system. Everything needs to be made more efficient. And if it's not, I'm like, okay, something's wrong with this. We need to fix it. How are people working like this? How can we proceed even as a child? How do we just do chores with just a list, like a random list? This is chaos. We need to organize this list. We need to have everything sorted by which room and what happens first. And we need to go in order. This needs to be more efficient by who's capable of doing this. And it would like drive my siblings crazy. Because it was like just do your work. Just do it and get it done. And I'm like, no, it has no system. And so that's been kind of how my mind has always worked. Now, once I grew up, I actually did a ton with childcare. I worked a lot in childcare. And even in that, I realized I could identify systems. I was able to identify what ways these children learn more efficiently. What ways what ways do they operate? Do we have more order? How can we implement more order? How can this help them in their futures more? And it was through systems, whether it be through a system for how we walk in line in the hallway, or a system for how they learn, or what songs and what schedule we do during the day, or a system for disciplinary processes for the kids to keep order in the classroom. There was always a system. I then moved on to doing more so high-level office manager type work, and then into marketing and business development. And that's where I discovered my love for systems met my love for software. And I started to like, wow, okay, I'm learning Infusionsoft. And and back then Infusionsoft was something that a lot of people kind of shied away from because it was kind of scary. It was confusing. If you're familiar with Infusionsoft, you've probably heard the term Confusionsoft. And so it was something that I like fell in love with. And I was like, man, oh my gosh, I think I love marketing automation software. So I kind of went down that hole and got certified in different things. And eventually, when life just got too busy, I realized, what do I really want? Like, I live in Virginia. And in Virginia, where I live, if you want to actually make decent money, you need to commute. That's just how it works. Whether you're going an hour south or an hour north, you need to commute either way, somewhere from where I live. So I realized quickly, like, I just had a newborn baby. I had a 2-year-old, and I'm losing a minimum of 2 hours of my day on the road, 2 hours that I can have with my kids. Oh. Then I'm also spending all of this time working for someone else, which is fine. But that just wasn't because I'm a huge, like, do what works for your family person. So there's nothing wrong with having a job. However, for me and my lifestyle and my personal goals, it wasn't working because I had so many other obligations outside of work. There was family. I'm heavily involved in my church, and I was on the board, and I was on a nonprofit board in my community. There were just too many things that I was doing, and I was finding myself spending too much time ripping and running. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't want this. I don't want this lifestyle anymore. What I want most, let's sit down and decide what works best for this family. What do I want most? What are my goals? And I had to make a change. So I
Sure.
actually put in a month notice because I was a key role in my job. And I knew, I'm like, if I leave, man, I felt really guilty. I was like, dang, I'm gonna leave. What's gonna happen? Who
Yeah.
am I gonna, even when I did my maternity leave, they found someone to replace me for that temporary time. And when I came back, they're like, oh my God, thank God. Oh, it didn't go well. I was like,
Yeah.
so what's gonna happen when I leave? So I gave them a month notice, gave a whole month's notice. And at first it was like, they're devastated. Like, okay, what are we gonna do? Which was a key thing in systems. One thing with systems is you shouldn't depend on people. You should depend on processes. And
Yeah.
so with that, it was me. And it was like, okay, we're dependent upon Latrice to do X, Y, and Z. Not we're dependent upon the process so that if Latrice leaves, yes, we'll miss her. Yes, there will be some setbacks. Let's not be fooled. There will be some setbacks. However, because we have such an efficient, strong system in place, we can slide somebody else in, and they may not be there yet, but we can get them there. We know we have the stuff in place to get them there. So it wasn't that type of party. They were like, look, what are we going to do? And so after I submitted my notice, they came back to me about a week or so later and were like, hey, we want to be your first client. So I left my job, and then the ball was in my court because now it's like, all right, it's not you and when you're getting raises, it's how much do you charge for us to hire you as a contractor? And
So good.
now we become your first client. So it really, really, really came full circle, and it worked out well for me that I was able to leave, because that was part of the big thing with taking that leap was like, okay, I know nothing about this. How am I going to find clients? How am I going to sustain myself and actually at least make some money in this while also I kept my children at home with me? I wanted to be there for those early years. So how am I
Yeah.
going to manage all these things and find clients? And they became my first client. So it was a really, really great full circle moment for me. And it gave me a really good start in my business.
Wow. There's so many similarities, right? Like comparing just your story to what my story
Really?
is. Yeah, absolutely. Two things that stood out of everything that you said. I mean, number one, like leaving your job, like giving them notice. Like you gave your job a month's notice. I gave my the standard 2 weeks. But there was a point where I was working this agency job as a marketing manager, and it just wasn't working for me anymore. I had started as a contractor for them
Okay.
outside, and then they brought me in-house. And the deal was that I could work half remote, half at home, half in the office. And so it wasn't working. They wanted me full-time, and I was just, I hated being there. I hated it. I dreaded going in every single day. Even though I was ultimately thankful for the opportunity, it wasn't working for our lifestyle anymore. And at the time, our kids were 7 months old. And, my wife looked at me, and I'll never forget this. I've talked about this before on the podcast, but it was, why don't you just leave then? And I said, I can tell you 2 really good reasons why that's not a good idea right now. And like, they were like crawling around on the floor, but it took that push and that drive. And I feel like I always had that in me, that entrepreneurial drive, to leave. So that's one thing that I feel like I definitely resonated with. And like you chose the software route where you explored Infusionsoft. When I was starting out in the marketing automation space, I chose ActiveCampaign as the one that I was going to go kind of all in with and learn automation. And at the time, Chris Davis, I don't know if you know him, he was the head of education.
I just did a podcast interview with him. Yep.
Great. Yeah, he was on the show a few months ago. Great guy. But I remember like binging all of those videos and just learning from Chris.
Been there.
And when yeah. So you kind of know. So for you, like my next question is, how do you stay up to date on all the different trends? There's so much happening in the world of technology, so much happening in the world of automation. There's so much that I feel, even myself now, I need to explore more about AI and start incorporating that not only into, my marketing for the business, but into how I prescribe. So what are your go-tos for staying up to date on the tech and automation, and, maybe, share some examples of how you're using it in your day-to-day?
So it's very difficult, extremely difficult, because it seems like if you specialize in one software, it's different. But
Right.
if you specialize in a lot of different tools, it's hard to keep up with all of the updates that everybody is making all the time. It's like, it's a lot. It's a whole lot. And so one of the things that I've done is I don't manage my inbox. My assistant does. And so with my
Right.
assistant managing my inbox, she responds to everything. She handles everything that comes through. We're subscribed to the software tools that we use and provide services for.
Great.
So that's one of the ways is we're subscribed to their email list. So typically, not always, not for everything, but typically they do send out an email. For example, Kartra will send out a consumer like monthly newsletter with like, here are the updates. And they're really good about, hey, we have these 10 updates this month. Here's a
Yeah.
video for how we can use all of them. I like to consume video. So that works for
And
me. Like, boom, let's just play the video. I know what's happening. Okay, cool. Next one. But in Slack, we have a tech tools channel. My
okay.
team goes in and posts like different things that they've discovered. Sometimes they'll be like, "Ooh, look at this cool TikTok video. This is a nice hack. Wow." They'll share stuff in there. But my assistant goes through and I have that channel on my phone. So she'll go through and she'll take an email and she'll just shoot it straight to Slack through the Gmail and Slack integration, shoot it
Uh,
straight to Slack. And I'm able to go in and I'll sit down at one time and look at, okay, what are the updates this one has? Let me go through all these updates at one time and see what's happening where. I also connect with all of them on social media. So I'm able to see their
good.
updates there, whether it be through Instagram stories or just through the news feed. I don't always see everything thanks to the algorithm. However, I take the time to go and search. So I'll be like, all right, Slack, what new AI integrations or what Chat GPT Slack integration is there, or what I'll go
Uh,
look for those things. Sometimes what I also find is pretty cool is also following other people in your industry. For some people, that doesn't work well for them because they're like, I don't want to see what anybody else is doing. It scope creep and peeking over the fence syndrome. Like I'm looking to constantly, it's too competitive. But for me, it helps me because they have a wealth of knowledge and they're constantly sharing like, oh, here's something I did for this client. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know such and such did that. How'd I miss that?
yeah.
Pick up on something that I missed. So I follow a lot of people in this space. But if you follow your, like, I don't know if you guys, most people in their business use Zapier. If you use Zapier, they're
Yep.
a good example of a TikTok channel that does amazing viral TikTok tips. So if you follow the software on TikTok, you'll oftentimes see them in a different, they kind of show their personality more. You'll actually see somebody's face. Somebody will be sharing a new tip all the time. And Zapier is a great example of a software company that has a TikTok channel and they're constantly sharing something new, some type of, oh, here's a cool hack you can do with Zapier by integrating it with X, Y, and Z third-party software.
And
So definitely something you should look at. It's just, you have to make a conscious effort to constantly be out there like, oh, let me take 30 minutes to just scroll down this thing and see what's new just to try
yep.
and stay on top. But there's never going to be a time that you will always be on top of all the things because it's happening so fast. And it seems
Yeah.
like, I mean, I look at 5 years ago compared to now, technology is moving lightning speed
Yep.
in comparison to what it was before. So it's very difficult to try and keep up with everything.
Those are good tips. Thanks for the one on Zapier. I spend way too much time on TikTok as it is, but if I can spend it
Yeah.
learning from apart from like Zapier,
Always something
n-
new on TikTok.
always something to do. On the like exploring the people in your space. I mean, off the top, I mentioned that's how like I connected with you. I went to take a look at your profile and your Instagram. Sorry, I should say. I saw that you were connected with Jordan Hill, who's another systems specialist, and I'm looking to get her on the podcast. And then off the top, your All Systems Go kind of approach. I mean, that's Chris's podcast, and that's the name of my email
Uh-huh.
newsletter. So there's definitely like synergies and absolutely connecting with like-minded people. For me anyways, like it inspires me, right? And then that makes me want to connect with people to talk about these things because I don't know about you. I mean, you have 3 kids at home all day. I'm alone all day. I've got my dog sitting here on the floor with me, but like we don't get a chance to like have a lot of these conversations unless we're like engaged in work with clients. So
As well.
I'm definitely all for connecting with people.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about your customers and your approach then. Would love to know, who is your ideal customer? What does the approach look like when it comes to managing their projects or helping them, increase efficiency, grow their businesses? Would love to explore really the methodology behind your business.
So one thing that has shifted as life has shifted has been our service offerings. I will say this for those of you who feel guilty about pivot as much as you need to. Pivot as
Eh,
much as you need to, whenever you need to. Make sure there's a strategy behind it, but pivot as much as you need to. I went from starting off in this space as just giving myself the title of VA because that was what was a popular term 7 years ago. It just became like in 7 years, the space has grown in a
yeah,
crazy way. But 7 years ago, the term VA was like newish. And even if you said it, people were still like, well, what's that? What does that mean? What do they do?
right.
But it was the introduction to this space. It was like, I didn't know it another way to enter. But then when I got there, I realized I don't do any VA work. Like, I'm not doing admin work.
Eh,
I specialize in the tech and the automation. So I started to pivot and shift. So our offerings have changed. But now we're to the point where we do done for you and we also have DIY services.
Okay.
What a lot of people love is our done for you services because it's a really fast turnaround time. We get you in, out real quick. But one thing that I found was I was jumping into people's projects. And then when I get in there, I find all these other things wrong. And I'm like, can I fix that? Can I fix
You
that?
didn't tell us
Oh, no,
about
it's
that.
going to take longer than I thought it would take because I also see this thing. Well, you didn't know that this does that? Okay. And I go down the
Eh,
rabbit hole. So what happens now is most people who come to us for large projects, they come to us. Sometimes they'll come for like, we have what we call a tech refresh session. Those are quick little small, oh, hey, I broke something. Can you connect that back or fix it? Okay,
eh,
cool. 90-minute sessions. But then we have those larger projects, we do an audit first. So the audit saves us from getting there and then everybody thinks they know the problem, but they're not the expert. So they can
yeah,
tell you the problem all day long. And then you get in there and you're like, well, actually, that's not the problem. This is the problem.
yeah,
So what happens is we jump in and we do an audit first. After we audit, we kind of give you a diagnosis of here are all the things that are wrong. Here's what it's going to take to fix it. Here's how long. Here are the details. And then we go fix the thing. And so that works out way more efficiently for us than just accepting any old project that comes through. Um, it saves us a lot of headache. It sets the expectation for what is actually going to happen. Versus you saying, oh, no, that will just take 5 days. And then
yeah.
you get in there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to take like 5 months. Like, it's crazy. So we typically handle it that route. I do have a small team and I have one person who assists me on the projects. And then I have one person that literally manages all the client communication, collecting the deliverables. We have a system for everything we need to collect. There's a spreadsheet on what the client gave us, what they didn't, sharing their
Great.
login and password via LastPass. There's all of those things. So it's a nice, quick process. But for any service-based business owner, it did not happen overnight. It wasn't something that was like, oh, we came up with this amazing, efficient process in year one. No.
Uh-huh.
It's a trial, error, failure, frustration, and us trying to figure it out to actually get to this point where now we know the process like the back of our hands and we created the system and then we automated that system so that now we have something that we don't have to have our hands on the whole time.
Right. How deep does your audit get? Right. Because like if you're looking at someone's business, there's so many different aspects you can look to improve. And then you get to the side of it where you're now delivering the audit and you don't want to overwhelm them or then discourage them maybe, right? By letting them know that everything's a mess. We gotta, go scorched earth here and start over. So where do you focus? How do you break it down and really, show them what the priorities are in their business?
So we focus our audits on the tech and the automation, those
Okay.
pieces specifically. We do have a partner that we partner with that does the high level systems.
Okay.
And they're great. So they'll do like super high level systems and we share clients. So we're like, hey, you need these high level X, Y, and Z things, go over there. Then we work with them, we tag team. We work with them for the tech and the automation. We focus specifically on that because if you get into the structural systems and processes, that is a lot. We will, however, when we see stuff, because we used to actually do the structural systems and processes, when we see stuff, we're like, hey, you might want to work on this. Just FYI, this should actually work in this way. And we also figured out that when it comes to tech and automation, people don't speak tech. They don't speak in software terms and things. It's too much. It's already something that seems overwhelming to them. So then speaking it back to them is like, I was already overwhelmed before I came. Now I feel like I'm just quit. Let's just go ahead, hang it up. We start over. And so what we found that is a whole lot easier is we document things in 3 different ways. So we map everything out in a visual process chart for them to see. I'm a very visual person. We also document everything in written format. And then we also provide them with a Loom video explaining all the things. Typically, we have a meeting at the end of our audit on Zoom. Hey, this is what we found, overview, blah, blah, blah. But we know that they need that reiteration. And so we go back in to reiterate everything with, here's a Google Doc. Here's the link to the Zoom meeting we had. Here's a link to the map. Here's a Loom of us going over the map and this doc for you to explain all of the things. Here's a quick action plan on the 3 things that need to be done that are top priority. And that seems to make things easier for them. If there's a lot of stuff, which we've had with certain people, we'll do it in phases and we break it up into phases. Based on our expertise, here are the things we would do in these phases. We would handle this first in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and just break it up. It tends to make it a lot easier for them versus them being like, oh God, everything's broken. I failed. I'm a terrible business owner, which a lot of times they feel like anyway. So it doesn't help when we're just like, oh, all of these things are wrong. So breaking it up and making it kind of seem a little bit more digestible works for us.
And then how do you work with them to make those improvements? So now you've broken it down, you made it digestible, you've given them the maps, which is huge value, by the way, to be able to get the video, get the documentation, get the maps, right? If you were to break it up in phases, then is this requiring like the business owner, like all the business owners' time to make those improvements? But in your done for you, for example, how much is required from them? What are you doing? And what does that process look like to get them over that first initial hurdle, let's say?
So I've done quite a few audits where they do it themselves. They have a team, but their team is more based on tasks and not strategy. So I've had plenty of business owners come through and they just want the audit. They'll tell me straight up, hey, I know you do audits. I just want the audit. So they'll just get the audit. And with the audit, I give it to them. I give them everything that I just said earlier, and then their team executes it because they do have a strong, solid team. Now, with a lot of the others, they don't. They're like, look, I don't have anybody who specializes in that specifically. So can you guys do it for us? For those people, if it's a phase situation, we handle it for them. But what makes it easier is the fact that we're able to get them in a meeting. We found through trial and error over the years is when we give them homework, it's not going to get done.
Right.
I've had projects where people pay in full, they have homework, and they disappear. They've signed a contract, they've done all the things. They know that if they don't get us things by X, Y, and Z date, they basically kind of get pushed to the back of the list because we have other projects slated that we have to keep working on. And they're like, hey, I know I owe you stuff. I went to an event in October and I saw 2 people who paid me who did not give me what they needed so long ago. And I met them for the first time in person and they were at this event. And immediately, as soon as I saw one, I go and I'm like, hi, I give her a hug. Oh my gosh, so nice to meet you in person. We've done Zooms a million times. So nice to meet you in person. And her first thing was, oh my gosh, I'm so ashamed. I know I owe you X, Y, Z. And I'm like, I'm not coming after you for the stuff you owe me. It's cool.
I have not been thinking about that at all.
Yeah, I'm like, I just was happy to see you. It's fine. But that happened so much back then that we had to start having kickoff calls. After we signed the contract for the project, we have kickoff calls. On these kickoff calls is literally our co-working session. Like, hey, if you struggle with LastPass, which people do struggle with it sometimes. You struggle with LastPass. These are the passwords that are on the spreadsheet that we need. Go in and do those now and check off each one you uploaded. We're just sitting there in silence. You done?
Good.
Okay, we also need this on the list. Is it on the Google Drive?
It's good.
Okay, next. And it literally is just holding that hand, getting everything we need. So, and while we're on there, we're looking through combing through every piece of the project. Okay, what else? Did we forget anything that we need? Oh, hey, we're adding this onto the spreadsheet. We also need this. Getting everything from them. So that now, once we're finished with that, we have everything we need to proceed. There's no, oh my gosh, I got to get them this. Oh, I got a meeting, and their to-do list never ends. So we can get it from them in one sitting, and it makes it a lot easier on them. They really feel like they're delegating when it comes to the systems versus them feeling like oh my gosh, it's such a burden for me to get this done. It's going to take forever, which they feel like in the beginning anyway.
Right. One tip, not sure if you've used this in the past, but I used to be on LastPass as well. And if you find your customers are struggling with it, 1Password. It was night and day. I promise you.
You switched to 1Password?
I switched to 1Password. The experience, the user interface, governance of it, admin, security, night and day. So much easier if you're looking for a new solution. Not a plug. I'm not a partner or anything, but just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to consider that transition.
Check it out. I'd love to know, you're talking about the onboarding, and I think it's super smart what you do. Schedule that time, block it out where you just got to get these things done. I can imagine how awkward it is just sitting there in silence as they're working through things, but super smart. What are some of the trends that you see as far as mistakes? Where are the business owners kind of going wrong? Where are they getting stuck? What are the common things you're coming in and having to, fix or provide a solution for right away? Can you talk to a couple of those?
So the biggest thing that I see, the thing that I see the most consistently is no systems, because we have so many viral videos of get active campaign because it's the best X, Y, and Z. Get such and such because it's the best this. Yeah. And so that's what people see first. So our order is, we're out of order. What we do is software. And we call that a system, but it's not. So we're like, oh, okay, well, I do already have ActiveCampaign and I use G Suite, and then I have Slack, and we use ClickUp for our project management, and everybody immediately spills off those things, but I still feel like I'm drowning in this, and this. And I'm like, well, there's no system. Well, yeah, I do, because I also use Zapier. That's not a system, that's a software. And we always prioritize the software first. We have no process in place. We have no efficiency. We don't have an actual structural system as to what's happening. And then the other thing that we hear oftentimes, because we have so many online gurus, delegate, hire, get a VA, go hire somebody in the Philippines. It's a constant, somebody's telling us we're doing something wrong, and here's a quick fix. We find the quick fixes and we don't look at longevity and sustainability. And a lot of who I've worked with have been some high 6, but mostly 7 and 8 figure businesses. And you would be amazed at the amount of them that by happenstance got here, have zero systems in place. Zero. Yeah. And I'm like, they just know so-and-so is responsible for this. This person is responsible for that. And here's the software we have. There are no SOPs in place. There's no documentation. Everything is in different people's heads, because that's just the way it happened. And some of them, and while they built something really amazing, really, really, really amazing, it's no easy task to just pop up and become a 7-figure business owner. No, not at all. But through hard work, they built it. And now they built this machine that has them on this hamster wheel that they can't get off of. And I've worked with so many of them that's like, I still have to have my hand in so many things. I had one who I was working with, I worked a lot on retainer for a lot of years. And so up until last year, actually, I worked always in my business for 6 years. I did retainers. And one of them who I was working with, she was going on a trip, and it was like a huge team. She's about to go on this trip. Let's get ready, boot camp for like a month. Don't forget, I'm going on this trip in a month. Don't forget, I'm going on this trip in a month. And it was like a constant, okay, what do you guys need from me? Who needs to do this? It was a constant like debrief. Let's get stuff out of her head. Let's get stuff out of her head. Meanwhile, the business had been going on for so many years. It was a multi-7-figure company, and it was all this prep happening for her to go on a trip.
Yeah.
Because the business could not operate without her.
Right.
It just couldn't. Even though she had this large team, even though there were so many talented, gifted, efficient people, there was never the time taken to say, hey, you know what? We're going to take this quarter, and this quarter is going to be time for us to get our systems in order. We're going to hire a professional that does this. But instead of putting special people in places where they could actually thrive, there was a, hey, we need this right now. So I was one of those people who was put in a, hey, we need this right now, and that's it, and that's all. I understand we need systems. I understand Latrice, but this is what we need right now, okay? We have this going on, so we don't want you to operate in that area. And so it was a lot of that happening, and I watched it was so much chaos, and I also watched a turnaround of some of the team members, because when you don't have systems, you can't retain your team, and you lose so much money.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, well, who was doing this? Oh, okay, well, so-and-so's not here anymore. Let's kind of follow the breadcrumbs and figure out what happened.
Yeah.
I watched another business owner who had something terrible happen in their life, and that business owner lost one of their businesses because they did not have systems. Mind you, this business owner had multiple businesses, so they were very, very profitable and making a lot of money, but something really tragic happened, and this person lost their business. One of their whole businesses, which means the whole team had to go. And everything that person built for all those years was gone because tragedy happened. This person had to be removed from the business, and there were not systems in place to sustain that business. And so people don't really prioritize it until it happens. And they're like, oh, something happened, and now I got to take this seriously. And it's like, sometimes it's too late. Sometimes you have grace and you're able to jump in and kind of get ahead of it before it gets too wide. But a lot of the times it's too late. And so for most of us, we just get so caught up in the next business coach said I should do, and not, okay, let me build this solid foundation, because I need this foundation because we're going to continue to grow up. And now the foundation is going to be leaning, and it's got cracks in it. And now everything, the higher we build, the harder it's going to fall at some point.
Oh, yeah. The higher we build, the harder it's going to fall. I love that. My question, as you were talking, my question is just why? Why do business owners who know that they need systems, not even systems, they know they need to document what they do, right? They know that they have this job where they're wearing all the hats. They know they don't like it. They know it's uncomfortable. They know that they love to take a day off or vacation. They know that the business is on their shoulders and, could crumble at any minute. In your experience, why don't they prioritize it? Why don't they prioritize the documentation so that they can properly delegate and properly scale and build that solid foundation?
It's kind of like the same thing. It's kind of like where in certain communities, when you make more money, you increase your expenses. It's like it's a mindset thing of like, I made this money. Okay, let me increase my expense. I can afford more. I made more money. Okay, I can afford more. And with business owners, it's very similar. We go through the same thing where I've reached this level. Okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? Okay, do I hire somebody else? Well, sales, marketing. Oh, there's another opportunity. There's shiny object syndrome when it comes to the new attractive pieces. And systems, and it's not attractive at all. There are other things like, oh, I need new branding photos, and we need to rebrand it. We need to do this thing, and we need to do that. And there's constantly something that needs to happen, but it's never that, because it's unattractive. And it's not something that we actually fully understand. Most of the time, business owners don't really get it. They don't understand it. So it's too overwhelming for you to just jump into. And then you got to find an expert that does it. And okay, how much money is tied to me taking the time off to fix this? Like there's
Right.
always something more. There's always something more attractive that I need to pay for, that I need to do, that I need to enhance. I need to join this
Sure.
coaching program, or I need to hire this person for this thing. There's constantly something, and it never ever ends. And we don't think about that because we're just like, oh no, now is the time when I need to work on X, Y, and Z because I do have a moment to do this. But there's revenue tied
Yeah.
to whatever this thing I'm about to do. And they don't see exactly how much they can lose from not
Uh-huh.
specializing or taking the time to really focus on the systems piece. And so I see that far too often. Or I know if you're listening to this, this may be you. You're drowning. It's the
Yeah.
reality of being a CEO and being an entrepreneur. We're drowning in so much, so many things. There are so many requirements and expectations, so many hats that we're wearing. How do you really prioritize taking the time to put one hat down and pick that boring, unattractive, I don't get this, I don't understand this thing up for a
Yeah.
season? So one thing my team does is every Q1 is we work on our systems. While we're doing it all year round, Q1 is like, all right, let's do a real assessment of what worked, what didn't, all those things. And we're making adjustments and pivots in Q1 every single year. We're
Right.
cleaning up things. We're figuring out, okay, do we need somebody else? Do we need to fill a new role? Did we miss anything throughout the year while we were like running real fast? What do we need to do? And so one of my mentors said to me, she was asking me, this was a couple of years ago. She asked me how was the business and stuff. And I was telling her how things were. And she was like, so what's the goal? Like, where do you want to go? So I was telling her the goal. And then she says, okay, well, if everything was to just happen,
Yeah.
and that happens for people sometimes, they'll have an interview on something. I've had clients who've had an interview on some major media platform, and they didn't have the systems, software, stuff in place to prepare. And all of a sudden they like, oh, hey, we want to feature you on X, Y, and Z. Oh my gosh. When is it? Oh, so soon? Cool. Yes. They go. Don't even prepare the background for it. Go to this
There.
thing immediately. You're getting all this website traffic. Boom, website crashes. Stuff like that
Yeah.
happens. They didn't prepare. And so
I
she
know.
was like, okay, so if something were to just happen, media outlets just pull you on, or something that just propels you to a place where you were not prepared right now to go. Are you prepared for whatever this thing is you're praying for? If God were to say, boom, here you go, here it is now.
Yeah.
Do you have the team in place? Do you have the systems in place? Do you have the structure for 10x what you have right now? Not just, oh, well, we're handling the day-to-day of what we have perfectly fine. No, 10x that immediately.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, are you prepared? And I was like, man, no, I'm not. So she was like, so what do we put in all this work and all this labor for if we're not even prepared for whatever's on the next level?
Wow.
And another thing she said to me in that same conversation was, she said, well, I want you to be very careful, because one thing that we do consistently is we are constantly chasing this ever-moving finish line.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
never ends. And that's what we do when it comes to our systems, is we're like, okay, I reached it. Oh, it moved 100 yards out again. Okay, I reached it. Oh, it moved again. And it's like, okay. And so we never stop running after this ever-moving finish line, because there's always something. There's like, it's like a carrot. Like, oh, there's a carrot. We're constantly chasing that carrot.
Yeah.
And we never, ever reach it, because it never, ever ends. And so that's why I'm telling people, now is as good as time as any, because if you don't prioritize it now, you won't. You just won't,
Yeah.
because you're constantly running, constantly chasing something.
I had that conversation with someone on the show a couple episodes ago, just about when is your enough, right? Like you mentioned, like that thing that you're praying for, that thing you've been waiting for and longing for, like you have it, right? I think back to me 5 years ago or 10 years ago, everything that I wanted back then, I have right now, right? I'm more successful than I've ever been, but like you said, we're chasing that next thing. Like, what's that next level, right? You have this constant like moving goalpost. So I love that you're tying it back to something that's real and tangible for your customers. I can only imagine in that situation that you describe, as soon as you ask those questions, I'm sure like the tears just came on, right? Because it's real, right? Like it connects to something. So what happened next in that situation? I'd love to see if we can, tie this to some of your core values and some of how you live your life in your business, because freedom is one of those things that you've always, wanted to achieve, and you help your customers, live the life of freedom that you're living today. So how do you then translate that? Because it seems like you've already got their buy-in. You frame it the way that you did, right? You've got the meeting out of the palm of your hand, so to speak. So how does it then translate into, okay, let's get to work now, let's stay focused on that end goal. I'd love to know how maybe even that conversation transpired.
Yeah. So after that, it's results.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's like, okay, I'm taking the time to do this boring thing that I didn't want to do anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sitting back and I'm doing this. And what I will say is a lot of us feel we don't say it because we don't think we actually feel it, but we really feel like we're invincible. We feel like this thing
Right.
that we've set up, there's nothing that
Yeah.
can break this. Like, this is an empire that I've created that no one can take down. And so we really feel that. In our heart of hearts, we really do feel that, because if we didn't, we'd prioritize getting it together, getting the foundation together more. And so with a lot of people, once they prioritize doing that, they're like, all right, where are the results? What am I going to see? What things are going to change? We oftentimes have to do check-ins on where they are, or I like to find out not just about numbers, which are great, but also, even when it comes to not just the numbers, just figuring out, okay, what great things did you see changed in your life? How much more
Uh,
time were you able to spend with your kids? What else could you do with your family? How many trips did you go on? All those things. I actually have a mentee of mine, and with her packages, she has some, I don't know how it works, but she's part of some other organization. So they're able to offer these vacations for some inexpensive rate. In her packages, what's included is a trip. It's like a 2 or 3 day trip after their setup.
okay.
And it's a genius idea because it's like an immediate win for her clients. Because as soon as they finish their stuff, their setup, the project's done and she's finished, they're able to pick where they want to go for this 2 or 3 day small little trip. But it's a quick thing to show them, like, look,
Yeah.
it's working. Look how
Yeah.
free you are. Just to give them a little taste of the freedom in case they kind of get weary and feel like, I don't want to keep up with this.
Yeah.
Immediately, they're able to go on a trip. And I think that idea is so genius. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's perfect for people. And they get these, and it's included in the package that she gives them. It's some rate that she pays that's inexpensive, that they get to choose from a certain amount of like Hilton hotels that they can go to in a couple of different locations. And they're able to go on these little trips, and it makes it so quick and easy and perfect for them as soon as they've finished their project. And
Yeah.
so stuff like that, constant life reminders, I think that this online space has done a really great job of annoying people with numbers, like how to make 10K with blah, 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 how
Yep.
I built blah, blah, blah with this amount of money and this amount of money. And it's constantly tying everything to numbers and getting people back to, yes, the numbers are important, because let's not act like if you were doing this for free, you would just keep doing it. No.
Right.
Let's not act like we're not making money in business, because if you're not making money, you don't have a business.
That's right.
But getting people to get away from just that and to also tie in the wins in life and the freedom in life, because everybody's freedom is not just tied to an amount of money. For me,
Yeah.
I realized that my freedom was tied to so much more than, oh, let's get to 10K months. Let's do 20K months. Who cares? At the end of the day, there's so much time freedom. There's so much joy that can be experienced outside of me just working behind my laptop all the time. And I found that so many of my past clients or people who have come to me for consulting and things like that, that's been kind of the testament of their life. I built this. I
Yeah.
have all of this money. I'm exhausted.
So
I
good.
don't like it.
So good.
Because they want to be able to live their life. They want to
Mhm.
enjoy the freedom that we thought we were getting in business for. We thought I was going to take a nap. I'm going to have all this time to do X, Y, Z. And that's not most people's reality. So getting people back to identifying those wins in areas where they can live their life, or areas where they can delegate, where their team is operating efficiently, where they have a funnel in place and they're waking up to Stripe notifications, and people are able to, they know that their systems are working for them. I'll be like, hey, I saw this opt-in and I tried to get it and it didn't work. Okay, so who set this up? What's going on with this? Oh, I don't know. That was done in 2018. It's just somebody set it up. I hired somebody off Upwork to do that, and I don't really know if it's working or not. Now you know that everything you have is solid. You're not losing customers, because when they go somewhere, when they're sampling your free stuff, it's working out efficiently for them. So now you've made a better experience for them, and you're able to nurture them in a special way, whereas some people aren't even nurturing their clients because their people aren't even getting into the funnel. And so things like that are great quick fixes to give people to know, wow, I don't even have to worry about if this thing is working or not. I've had people who do email notifications. They'll be like, well, actually, I just get an email notification when people fill out this form. Then I go in and I just confirm that the thing that they got, they did receive it. And then I'm like, nope. Gone are the days of you being tied to your inbox or your phone or your computer. Be free.
Have to be. And like your customers, or like process, I should say, like a lot of the things you're teaching your customers, they're iterative, right? Like you're doing this over time. It's not going to be at the drop of a hat that they change. And so for you, like coming to this realization, I love your approach. I love the way that you think, Latrice. Like if you could like wrap this up into like one moment in your life, you know, as we're closing out here, one moment in your life where the switch did flip for you, right? I'd love to know, like, what was that moment where your core values aligned, your purpose, the vision aligned, how you were going to communicate with your customers aligned, and what was that lesson that came out of that moment?
Well, I'll start with sharing what made me transition. I got in business just to literally spend more time with my kids and to keep them home. I did not anticipate like, oh, I could make this amount of money. I didn't do that in the beginning. I literally was like, okay, what's the difference between what we're paying for childcare and how much I need to make? Like, what's the difference to reach what we're saving in childcare and how much I need to make in my business each month to make up for what I was actually making at my full-time job. Great. So that was initially the thing. And as I started to build, it became like maybe a year in business. I looked and I was like, wow, I am spending so much time working. Like this went from me working 8 hours a day for somebody else to now I'm like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm still up. I haven't went to sleep yet because I'm working on the business still. I'm still doing business stuff. And it was a wake-up call when my 3-year-old at the time, with my son, he used to always walk around and he used to say this thing like, oh, I got work to do. I got work to do. He used to say that all the time. And so I was like, why is he saying that? And I always was like, what? Why do you keep saying that? And it would be something he would say in a high voice, like a woman. And I was like, why is he changing his voice to say that all the time? And so it took me a minute to realize one day when he asked me to do something, and I was like, okay, buddy, we'll do it later. I got work to do. And I was like, oh man, he's mocking me. He's mocking me. And I was like, dang, man, I really just created this environment where my kids are here and exist, and I'm with my kids. But I'm working. And I was like, oh, all right. I remember being on the road, and everybody who listens to my podcast or my classes, you know, I call my laptop Sheila. So I was in the car and Sheila was in the back because she would go everywhere with me. I'm not leaving without Sheila. We going, Sheila coming too in the back. And I remember somebody emailed me. I had my email on my phone. Somebody emailed me and I was driving and I was like, dang, I got to the light. I read the email. I was like, I need to deal with this right now. Pull over at Target parking lot, kids in the back. Me and Sheila, we working in the parking lot. And the kids were like, can we go home? Mommy, I'm hungry. And I'm like, hold on, I got to finish this thing. And it became a way of life to where I was glued and attached to that. And it took my son, my oldest son, to be like, I got work to do, for him saying that all the time, to be like, okay, I need to now change everything. Like everything needs to change now. Because there is no way that I got so far in such a short time away from my why. I moved so far away from it. Like, this was your why. You said this was why you started. Hello.
Yeah.
And I got so far away because it was like, oh, wow, I can actually really make more money doing this. And it's like endless and I could just keep going. And I built it and I shut it all down because I was like, okay, now we need to rebuild. Now I need to have like a come to Jesus moment and like, okay, what are we going to do differently now? What's going to be different about the way you're going to operate your business in the future? And what I can say is, like, Monday, I'm going on a field trip with my oldest son. I don't miss field trips. I've never missed, my kids go to private school, so they have chapel once a month. I haven't missed a chapel. I don't miss a luncheon. They go there in extracurriculars, music and sports and all these things. I'm at everything. It doesn't matter what it is, a recital, whatever it is, that's a priority. This is not. So I don't care what y'all say I got to do. I'm not going to be there if my kids have something. Sorry, that's just how that works. And so I had to really make a shift in my life and in my business, because when I made that business shift, it immediately showed in my life. And I have a colleague of mine who always says, I can't remember the exact saying, but she talks about how the revenue is in the rest and how we are constantly running. And how we kind of have to make that shift from being so work driven and focused, which we are, at least in America. That's how we are. We are so like, we live to work, not we work to live. It's backwards.
They're very different.
We live to just work.
Yeah.
And so really finding that when you operate from a place in a position, rest is a mindset. When you operate from a position of rest, your creativity comes. You're able to be the visionary. You want to be the CEO in your business. Ideas and so many things just flow and come to you when you're operating from a space of rest versus when you're in chaos and you don't have any clarity.
Yeah.
So that shift has changed everything for my business. The innovative ideas, standing out and not looking like a carbon copy of what I see in this space, it's all happened from changing my mindset and operating from a space of rest and freedom versus chaos. And now I'm like, okay, I can move with grace and ease in my business.
So good. I could not have thought of a better way to round out this episode. So good. Thank you very, very much. Latrice, where is the best place people can connect with you? I know you mentioned Instagram earlier. Where's the best place people to connect with you? Where are you hanging out these days?
Instagram for sure. Instagram is my social media platform of choice where I mostly communicate with my audience. And I am the most active on Instagram. And then my website, if you guys want resources and free things, is getsystemssupport.com.
Perfect. Getsystemssupport.com. All of that will be in the show notes, including links to Instagram. Latrice, can't thank you enough for your time and sharing all this with us today.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.